Hello and welcome to my science tutorials. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the differentiation of trigonometric functions. Before we begin, if you are new to my science tutorials, kindly consider subscribing and pressing that notification button so that you don't miss any of our latest tutorials on biology, chemistry, mathematics, and physics. So let's go ahead. Like I said earlier on, we will be talking about the differentiation of what trigonometric identities. So let's look at an example. If I have the function what sine x and I differentiate this function, it means I apply what d dx to the function what sine x. So if I differentiate sine x, I get what cos x. Now if I differentiate cos x, I get what negative sine x. This differentiation is very important and we need to what hold it in mind. Now assuming I have the function y is equal to what sine f of x, where f of x is a function on its own. Let's say for instance f of x over here can be a function, let's say s squared plus 2x minus 4 or anything. Okay, so if I have a function like this and I'm to find what dy dx of this function, first of all what I need to do is what I need to differentiate this function, just the function alone first, so it becomes what f prime of x. Then I multiply it by what the differentiation of the function altogether with the sign. Okay, so if I differentiate that, it will now become d dx of the function what sine f of x. Okay, so it means my dy dx becomes what f prime of x, which is what the differentiation of just the function multiplied by, if I differentiate what sine x or sine f of x, I get what cos f of what x. So this becomes my what my dy over what dx if I differentiate the function of the form what y is equal to what sine f of x. The same thing applies to the function of the form y is equal to what cos f of x. It means my dy dx is equal to, first of all I need to differentiate the function what f of x. It becomes what d dx of the function f of x, okay, multiplied by what d dx of the function cos f of what f of x. Okay, so it means my dy dx is equal to, if I differentiate f of x, I get what f prime of what x, multiplied by, if I differentiate cos, I get what negative what sine f of x. So finally it means my dy dx is equal to what negative f prime of x sine f of what f of x. Okay, so this is just a brief intro to how we differentiate what trigonometric functions. Alright, so with that said, let's look at an example, a very simple example in this case, to see how we can solve that. So we have to find dy dx of the function sine into bracket s squared minus what 3x what plus 1. Alright, so let's write down our solution. We can say what, let the function this be equal to what y. So we have y is equal to what sine s squared minus 3x plus 1. So you can see that the whole of what s squared minus 3x plus 1, I can take it to be what my what f of x. So in the long run I can rewrite everything over here as what just y is equal to what sine f of x. So like I said in the beginning, first of all I need to differentiate this function and multiply it by the differentiation of this together as a whole. So let's go ahead and do that. So it means my dy dx is equal to, I need to differentiate this function, so it becomes what d dx of just the function over here s squared minus 3, then multiply by what d dx of the function what sine s squared minus 3x plus 1. Alright, so it means my dy dx is equal to, if I differentiate x squared, I get what? 2x minus, if I differentiate 3x, I get 3. If I differentiate 1, I get a 0. So it's just 2x minus 3. Then multiplied by what? If I differentiate sine, I get what? Just cos. So cos s squared minus 3x plus what? Plus 1. So it means my dy dx is what? Is the product of what? 2x minus 3 cos s squared minus what? 3x plus 1 as my answer. Alright, so let's have a look at another example. So we are to find dy dx if the function y is equal to what? 3 cos what? 5s squared plus 2. Alright, so from here I can do what? I can say my dy dx is equal to what? D dx of the entire function over here, which is what? 3 cos what? 5x squared plus 2. So my dy dx becomes, the 3 is a constant, so I can bring it outside. So I have 3 outside, d dx of the function what? Just cos 5x squared plus 2. Okay, so my dy dx becomes, the 3 is still here. Now just differentiating what I have in the bracket over here, I need to first of all differentiate what I have over here, and then I differentiate everything as a whole like we did earlier on. So it means I need to differentiate, which is what? D dx of the function 5x squared plus 2, then multiply by what? D dx of the function altogether with the cos, so cos 5x squared plus what? Plus 2. So it means my dy dx is equal to what? 3 multiplied by what? 5s squared plus 2. Then my dy dx becomes 3 multiplied by, if I differentiate what I have in the bracket over here, 5s squared becomes what? 10x if I differentiate it. Then the 2 over here is a constant, so I differentiate it, I get 0, so it's just 10x. Then multiplied by what? If I differentiate cos, I get what? Negative sine, then 5x squared plus 2. Okay, so it means my dy dx will now be equal to, the negative will affect everything over here, so it becomes what? Negative 30x sine what? 5x squared plus 2 as the answer after we differentiate this function. Now let's have a look at one final example. Assuming we have the function of the form y is equal to what? Sine n raised to the power x. How do we differentiate a function that looks like this? So to differentiate a function that looks like this, we need to what? Rewrite this function in a more suitable way. So this function can be rewritten as y is equal to what? Sine x raised to the power what? N. Okay, so once we rewrite it and we bring the power outside, we say what? Let u be equal to what we have in the bracket, which is what? Sine x. So if u is equal to sine x, it means this function can be rewritten as what? Y is equal to what? U power n. Okay, so it means we need to differentiate this and this as what? Product rule, to be able to get what? Our dy dx. So if we differentiate u with respect to x, we get what? Du dx to be equal to what? If we differentiate sine x, we get what? Cos x. Now if we differentiate this, we get what? Dy du, and it's equal to what? We use the n to multiply the u, so we get what? N u power n minus 1. So it means our dy dx is equal to what? The product of du dx, which is this, by what? Dy du. So we can see that du will cancel, we get dy dx. So our dy dx over here becomes what? Cos x multiplied by what? Nu power n minus 1, for us to be able to get what? Our answer. But now from here we can see that We said earlier on that let u be what? Sine x. So let's do that substitution quickly. So our dy dx becomes what? Cos x multiplied by what? N. The u is what? Sine x. So we have sine x raised to the power what? N minus 1. So I can bring the n outside. So I have my dy dx is equal to what? N outside cos x. Then I can rewriting sine x over here like in this form. It means I can bring the n power 1 to just the sine, and then the x will be outside. So this becomes n cos x multiplied by what? Sine n minus 1 x as our final answer. Okay, so let's have a look at an example. So if I have y to be equal to what? Cos cube x, and I'm to find what? Dy dx. How do I solve this example? So let me write the solution. So first of all, we can rewrite this whole equation as what? Y is equal to what? Cos x cube. Then from here we say what? Let u be what? Cos s. Cos x. It means we can rewrite the function over here, y to be equal to what? U cube. Now we need to differentiate each of this function. If we differentiate the u with respect to x, we get what? Du dx, and it becomes what? If we differentiate cos x, we get what? Negative sine x. Alright, now if we differentiate y is equal to u cube, we get what? Dy du to be equal to what? If we differentiate u power 3, we get what? 3u squared. Okay, so from here it means our dy dx is just the product of these two differentiations, which is what? Du dx multiplied by what? Dy du. So it means my dy dx is equal to negative sine x multiplied by what? 3u squared. So dy dx is equal to negative, I bring the 3 outside, 3 sine x multiplied by what? Multiplied by what? U squared. But I know my u is equal to what? Cos what? X. Okay, so it means my dy dx is equal to negative 3 sine x multiplied by what? Cos x squared. So finally my dy dx is equal to negative 3 sine x cos square x as my final answer. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.